Hello, welcome to TrueHoop with me, Jarod Hector, and my special co-host today from the Dear Adam Silver podcast, Abigail Smithson. How are you?
I'm good. I'm back. It's so great to be back with you, Jarod. I'm happy to be back on TrueHoop, and thanks for having me.
Of course, folks, David, he doesn't like when we tell all his business, but I'm going to tell all his business anyway. He's got some computer issues right now. So, he's got to do some major revamping over there at down in Florida with his computer system. But we're so happy that Abigail was able to join us. So those of you who remember, she's been on our podcast in the past. In the past, she lived in Arkansas. She has since moved and is now back in the sunny state of California with a new job and a whole bunch of new stuff. So, Abigail, give the folks a quick top line as to what's going on with you now.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, there's a lot of fog today. So it's the foggy and a little sunny. I'm state of California. I am far, far north in California, just south of Oregon in Humboldt County, Arcata proper on Cal Poly Humboldt campus. Coming to you live. We actually do not have a great mascot. Our mascot is the Lumberjacks. But so I am officially a Lumberjack. I'm a lecturer in the art department here at Cal Poly starting in August. So I moved from Lyon College, a small private liberal arts school in Arkansas, to Cal Poly Humboldt, close to where I'm from. I also want to say that David's computer troubles are my good luck in this situation. That just after arriving back in my home state, I'm getting to join the podcast. And yeah, this is just really exciting. So yeah, I'm switching positions a little bit, still working in art. I'm not sure when I'll be able to teach my sports and art class here again. I'm slated for photography and some intro classes, 2D design and things like that in the fall. So we'll see when I can work in some of my personal curriculum to the program here. But yeah, it's really wonderful to be here with you and also just to have the chance to move home.
Well, that's really awesome. Great. And, home is, for so many people, it's such an important thing, right? To be able to be close to home. And, everyone may remember you are a Golden State Warriors fan. So that means you can now watch your beloved Warriors in the right time zone, right? So you're going to
yeah, so it won't be 9:30 on a Tuesday night where the game's starting and I see the first quarter before passing out. I mean, but it's so funny because I took a part of me that made me feel close. When I was feeling isolated, it made me feel closer to home to see those games. And I'd see, Oracle for a long time, but Chase Center. And, I have weird feelings about that, but also just, there was, a lot of comfort there and something's happening somewhere. It's not just quiet and not everyone's going to sleep. And yeah, so now it'll be real time and that will be exciting too. And I think we'll definitely try to go to what I think will be a very affordable Blazers game this season, if things go as Dame hopes they go. And then also, I will check out the Kings, our California up and coming team.
Mm-hmm. So is that right? You are much closer to Oregon than you are to San Francisco.
Well, I'm closer to the state of Oregon than I am to San Francisco, but I am what I think I am farther from Portland than I am from San Francisco.
Got it.
According to Google Maps. Google Maps, as we were discussing before we started recording, not the best barometer for how long something actually takes.
Definitely not.
I'm just going to say one thing. So I'm so excited to be here. I'm just going to make a complaint. Gas. It's wild. The price of gas. Wow. And
what are you up to now? $6 a gallon?
We're just under $6. Yeah. I mean, this is a big adjustment. I think that we are renting a place here. I sent my security deposit in. I was like, these people should be arrested for these prices.
For robbery.
For robbery. My hard-earned money. What could you possibly be doing with this much money? So I think it's much easier to move from, I moved from Arizona to Arkansas. That felt like a good, that cost of living adjustment. That was great for me. The other way around is God, please. What's happening?
Yes. Listen, while I cannot share your pain at the pumps as I live in New York City and thankfully have mass transit and don't need to use cars, I can understand your cost of living pain though, being in New York City, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's not great.
No, yeah. So I think I'm already, maybe I'll retire to back to Arkansas or something and just, whatever. Who knows?
Listen,
It's rough.
listeners of this podcast know where we stand on late stage capitalism and all the horrors that it has inflicted upon the masses in this country.
Right, absolutely. And so I was thinking of that because of my drive to Portland to see the Blazers. Maybe the tickets might be more affordable than seeing the Warriors, but getting there will be quite expensive.
Yeah, see, there you go.
So
It's 6
the
of one,
gas
half dozen
money.
the other, right? Like, so, it's at some point you're gonna get robbed, right? It's armed robbery. These people are it's legal armed robbery is what they're doing.
Right.
It's crazy. All right, I wanted to have Abigail on because she has such great fan perspective, and I kind of wanted to just do a recap on the season that just completed. Of course, the Denver Nuggets are NBA champions. Abigail was on when we had the wonderful Thomas Beller on, and he had a book that is a collection of all his great essays, and there was one particularly about Nikola Jokic, who, of course, was the Finals MVP, and I guess for some people out there, cemented that those two regular season MVPs prior to were somehow now worth it because his team won a championship. Those of us who really understand basketball clearly didn't need to see that, right? One is a regular season individual award. NBA championship is a team award. Like, right? Like, one's got nothing to do with the other, but okay.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And try telling, his fan base in Serbia, I would think was not, he was there everything before getting even close to the finals. So yeah.
Right. So for them, they're like, who cares? Like, this means nothing. Like,
yeah,
he's still the best ever for us. But as a fan, how were you? I look at it like the season is like, chapters in a lengthy, long odyssey and saga, right? So how did you feel about this overall chapter of the NBA in this season that just concluded?
Yeah, I think that it was an exciting season in the sense that we ended up with the number one seed winning the championship. So there maybe wasn't as much mystery in how things played out overall, but I think there was a lot of sort of tiny little battles in there, especially in the playoffs and like what could possibly be. And I think that it was an exciting season. I think that the first two rounds of the playoffs were quite exciting. I know as a Warriors fan, I was on the edge of not even my seat, like my deck, because I couldn't watch the game. Like I had to leave the game and go outside in game 7 of the game. And then I think that was after that, you and David you and Coach Thorpe had a podcast where you were saying people might care too much about their team. And then I was like, I'm one of those people.
That's me.
I couldn't even watch the last 30 seconds of the game. They're talking about me. Yeah, so I think that it felt very open. The season felt very open. It didn't feel like anything was written in stone or, that there was this one team that was just gonna, even with like the Grizzlies, this up and coming team that's been like knocking on the door for a while, making a playoff run, that they, that's still up in the air. They're still in this limbo of like what could be and what is. And so thinking about that, there's just so much sort of mystery there. So I felt like it was exciting. And as a Warriors fan, no one is here for what I have been known to be the Golden State Warrior in my actual life and in, about basketball. Yeah. I'm sure no one is here for that coming off these 4 championships, but I do think that, there was uncertainty because of that championship that they won in 2022. It felt special in the sense that it didn't feel like they dominated. It felt like they came out of something that was more, less sort of more organic, less, I don't know. I think it just
predetermined.
Less predetermined. Yes, exactly. It felt like it felt in 2015. It was a really special championship. So I think that coming off of that, I had no thoughts about them going back to back. It just wasn't going to be the way that it had been before. And I was okay with that, but also wanting to see them succeed. I think that it was really hard after 2019 with KD's injury and Clay's injury to have them fall so far so quickly. And also to have them on national TV constantly losing all the time. I know. Yeah. It's like, can we change this schedule? TNT, can you find another team? That was just like, whoa, I needed a little more space in there for that type of transition. So I think that this felt very, this felt healthier for the NBA. I know that, as much as I want the Warriors to win, like 2017, 2018, like those were not the most exciting years for the NBA as far as having those super teams, perhaps.
So it's so interesting, right, that you say that. And revisionist history always does this to us, right? Oh, once they signed KD, we knew it was going to be the Warriors 2017, okay, but this team, this Kevin Durant-led Golden State Warriors team, should have lost to the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. Absolutely. Let's not act like it was they won every game by 100 points and they swept that's not how this worked. That's not how it went.
I know. So this is great. So this is my own psyche as a Warriors fan telling me that I have just no room to show any of my concerns. But absolutely, that Warriors, that was 2017, that series with the Rockets happened. Mm-hmm. That was also a series where I was not watching, where I was, in whatever games I was like, I guess that was the game 7 where the Rockets missed all those threes in a row.
That was 2018, because 2017 was 2018, that series, Chris Paul, Rockets were up 3-2. Chris Paul gets injured, misses game 6 and 7, right? Again, healthy Chris Paul, and everyone can say, oh, he always gets hurt every playoffs. Fine. But if he doesn't in that playoff series, trust me, Rockets win, they go to the NBA championship. 2017 was the Spurs, where the Spurs were literally kicking the Kevin Durant Warriors' asses by 28 points late. And that's when, Zaza Pachulia all of a sudden came out of nowhere and his foot went under Kawhi. And then, whoopsie, Kawhi's out. So my point is, and it's not about you, Abigail, it's more about this idea of like everything being, we knew. No, you didn't know, because Kawhi doesn't get hurt in that series. What happens? The Warriors were getting their ass kicked in game 1. I don't know that the Warriors win that series. But we won't know now, because he did, and it was over.
Right. Yeah. Those little things those like small things, this injury that actually have big consequences. Absolutely. And we don't know. And within the span of a series, a 7-game series, of course, so many things can happen just within that series that shape the rest of the playoffs for other teams that are not involved. And just like picking up a little bit of momentum, or a little bit of, we can actually do this. Or if I step on this person's ankle, we can get there,
No, right. That's essentially what it's like. Oh, my foot was in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Or maybe, in my case, the right spot at the right time, right? Like,
the right spot for the next championship. Right. Yeah, so I think that is definitely something to be considered. And there is a lot of what, especially just what Kevin Durant came off of in 2016 with the Thunder and joining this very dominant team, and how that's looked at, how that will affect KD's legacy, and how that, how that shapes our recollection of that time, because that is what the dominant narrative is. It's like, this was predetermined. How could anyone beat this team? But we had possibilities there. And I wanted the Warriors to win, and there were still, it's funny now with Chris Paul being on the Warriors, thinking about how I was so angry at the Rockets. I really didn't like the Clippers when Chris Paul was on them. I really didn't like the Rockets and Chris Paul was there. It's just like, there's a lot to,
One of the things to love about Chris Paul is, and Coach and I say it all the time, he's never won an NBA championship, but most fans don't realize how much luck it takes to win an NBA championship. Yes, you have to be, as I always say, you have to be good. The Magic can be as lucky as they want. They're not winning no NBA because they're just not good enough. You have to be good to take advantage of the luck, right? Yeah. But you need a tremendous amount of luck. And Chris has had some just unfortunate injury luck throughout his career. But if you look at him all time in terms of one of my favorite stats, which is win shares per 45 and even total win shares, Chris Paul is a top 5, top 10 guy in that stat, which means you put him on your team, you're going to win a ton because he knows how to play winning basketball. Now, just because they have a championship doesn't mean he's not an ultimate winner, right? Yeah. So many other things have to go right for you to win the big gold ball at the end. But in terms of winning a lot, Chris Paul knows how to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do think that, I know where I'm coming from as a Warriors fan, but I think that there's an overemphasis in general on that last thing, on the championship, on that as a defining moment in someone's career, and I think that also, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but the idea of like where you are in the draft, that is also something that can be overemphasized. Like you're this pick and that means this. Well, actually, you're all these other things too. And that is not necessarily what, whatever. Nikola Jokic is now always going to be a NBA champion. No one can take that away from him. Christian Brown is always going to be a high school championship, a NCAA championship, and an NBA championship. He literally has like very little left on that list, you know.
Right.
But I mean, I think he should, you know, try the Olympics and some things like that, and maybe like try something else. I don't know. Like he should retire. No, but I'm kind of saying the opposite of that. That there's just like there's so much more that goes into these experiences and these. You know, we put so much emphasis on that one thing, this draft number, this championship. And it's kind of, I think it can get a little boring to think about things in that way. And that people are like, you're saying Chris Paul is fascinating. He's such an interesting basketball player and what he embodies as a basketball player, as far as, being this old school point guard, this sort of the role that he plays, this facilitator, this, you know, the way he thinks and how I find him to be very interesting. And that is better to me than like whether he has a championship. Or not. Yeah.
Listen, you and I are on the same page there with Chris Paul. Think about this. You know, the hard part about everything you're saying, Abigail, is that for fans, and we, you know, I will lump myself in the fan category too. The only reason why you'd want to cover this league is because you're a fan of it first. At least I would hope so. Like, right? If not, I got questions about what you're doing with your life.
Right.
But our brains are designed to take things in binaries, right? And not really expand out and like look at like deeper meaning, especially in sports, right? Look, one team won, one team lost. That's it. That's all I know. Like top 5 lists. Like, no, these are the best 5. That's what it's easy for us to categorize that way. But when you think about Chris Paul, think about how amazing what he's accomplished in his career is. On a good day with sneakers on, he's 6 feet tall. Okay.
Yeah.
Like to dominate the game of basketball, which is a land of fucking giants at that size, is incredible. Like, you know how good you have to be to do that?
Right.
Like, and I don't think people really understand how, because you watch on TV, people, and again, I'm so fortunate and blessed that I get to be up close and see this stuff. I'm like, guys, you step on an NBA court and these are giant humans. And then Chris Paul walks by you and you're like, oh, you're my size. Like, how the hell are you this good against all these super huge people?
Yeah. I know, that's so funny. I always think of the basketball players in relationship to my husband's height. And because, you know, often he's like a good 8 inches taller than me or whatever. And so I'm like, what's happening here? Like you feel so much taller than me. And then that's actually Chris Paul's height. And then we add, you know, another
foot.
Yeah. And in some cases, another foot and some, you know, with our newest star and like, or our potential, whatever. So I think that's, it's wild. So he is so impressive. Also, he is a facilitator off the court too, because he organized his high school reunion, which is so cool. I mean, he's just such an interesting person. Yeah.
Henry and I say this all the time. You know who would hate being Chris Paul's teammate? Chris Paul. Like Chris is your classic, and I mean this in the nicest possible way with no malice whatsoever. Chris is your classic Napoleon syndrome, dude. Like that's like who he is, right?
Sure.
Like, oh, I'm small against all, and you people think I can do it? Well, fuck you. I'm going to show you. And he's fucking showed you for damn near almost 20 plus years now in this league, right?
Right.
And he's very much I also say, like, when you were a kid, he's the kid that's like, it's my ball, I'm going home. Like he's also that kid when you were young playing, right? Those are all the things that like make him also so great on the floor. All of those pieces, right?
Yeah.
That little bit of like, fuck you, that toughness, that's how you survive in a sport where it says people that small cannot thrive, right? This is a place for big people. You, my friend, are not big.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And even thinking about his, you know, hunting for fouls when he goes up and kind of, you know, bumps into someone on the side there. It takes him 2 seconds. I mean, there's no acting. It's actually the opposite of flopping because he just bumps into them and then he immediately walks to the foul line. I mean, he just is all business. He's like, this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. You know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to like play the game this way because I can, and I'm going to own this situation. And like, there's something so annoying about that. I mean, I rooted for him when he was on the Suns. I was living in Arizona. Like when he's on the Clippers and Rockets, is, going up against the Warriors is
different
different. Yeah. And now he's on the Warriors, so I certainly want him to be using everything he can to his advantage.
Every trick in the book.
Yeah. He really is just so, it's this business, and you're saying that he just like handles himself in a certain way. It's really, it's sort of powerful to watch that within this yes. sort of the land of giants.
He's a master of the rule book. I know you saw that time when a player on the opposing team had his uniform tucked out. He's pointing to the ref. His uniform is tucked out. That's a technical foul. I'm like, that is Chris. Yeah, listen, man. Like,
he's at home at night going through the pages,
highlighting like, ooh, this is a good one. I know how to get that one. Look, the point is, and David Thorpe will tell you, the goal is to win possessions in basketball, right? Well, pointing out that someone violated a rule that gets you a technical free. That is a one possession, right?
Right.
Oh, too bad you messed up. I won that possession. Like, and the more I do that, the better chance we as a collective have of winning. And I think this is why David loves him so much. He embodies we and not me, right? Like what are the things that I have to do to make sure that this collective unit, we are in the best possible place to win? And, that to me will be a big legacy for Chris Paul. I too, this season I was happy with how it went. I thought the Nuggets were the best team. Really, when you go back and look at the totality from beginning of season to end, they really were the best team all year, even though they had little lulls because it's 82 games. You're going to have peaks and valleys.
Of course.
And then in the playoffs, I thought, man, what an epic performance they put on throughout 4 rounds. Abigail, the only team that gave them trouble was Phoenix when it got tied 2-2. Like everybody else, they just steamrolled.
Yeah. Yeah. And even when Phoenix was giving them trouble, I didn't think that trouble was, of course, anything can happen. Phoenix could have won, we don't know, but I still felt that the Nuggets just had it. They had something. They had
answers to every question.
They had cohesion. They had momentum. They had we've been through this before. And of course the Suns have been kind of knocking on the door as well. So we don't know what could have happened there, but I think that it's just, it was their season. And that was very, exciting to watch. And so coming off of the Lakers beating the Warriors, that was a real roller coaster because I had the Kings. I had the Grizzlies. I chose them for my first round. Like they were going to beat the Lakers. But then I listened to your podcast with Coach Thorpe. I was thinking maybe I should switch this to the Lakers. Switch it to wait, what am I saying? Whatever it was, I switched it to what you guys said. I switched it to the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies winning.
Okay.
And then the Lakers won. Sorry. And so then they're up against the Warriors, that was a interesting time. Also because, and this is an interesting place-based thing, Austin Reeves is from 15 minutes from the town that I lived in Arkansas. So this is a big deal for this town. He's on billboards. He comes home to this area he was there during the All-Star break at Batesville High School, getting popcorn, hanging out. He's played with some of the players that I taught at the college,
that's
played
awesome.
pickup with them. Yeah, so this is a really important thing. And I'm destroy Austin Reeves. Get him out of here. Even though I was there's a chance the Larry O'Brien Trophy could come to Lyon College campus if the Lakers won.
Very true.
I still was let's be done with this. And so that was interesting to kind of experience because those 2 rounds felt so intense there for me, especially just with the Warriors Steph and LeBron, these 2 sort of stars that are I don't know what stage exactly I want. I don't want to put out any labels of where anyone's at in their career.
Late, in LeBron's case, late 5th prime, and instead of case, late 2nd prime,
I know. And so I just, that was an interesting thing. And I think, I had thought that the Warriors could pull that off. And so I was angry coming out of that series. I was let's go Nuggets. From now on, Nuggets destroy everybody. Let's do this. Let's, but then of course the Heat, I had no idea at that point that the Heat were going to get as far as they did. So then it was that was exciting too. And I was rooting for the Nuggets in the finals, but also the Heat was such a compelling, interesting story. And I loved watching them beat the Celtics. That was so exciting. And there's plenty of players that I like on the Celtics. It was just kind of thinking about, the team that no one guesses.
Yeah, no,
go this far. They have no business. It barely made it out of the play-in games. Yeah,
they should. Right, they shouldn't have even gotten in this far. They should have lost the play-in. But as The Lakers, by the way, down 17 to the Timberwolves, should have also lost in the play-in, right? But that's what I mean about you don't know where these things were, right? Things that teams should have lost, right? Or they could have lost, right? But whatever reason they didn't, and then things turn around. No, it was the East, especially, right? With the Heat, and what to me what stood out so much was, we talk about it all the time, the 3-point variance was so crazy with the Miami Heat because, as I pointed out, they were a bottom third 3-point shooting team all regular season long. Yes. That is a large sample size, like that, right? That's playoffs by definition, small sample size. In this series, they did well. They shot lights out. Oh, surprise, surprise! When they lost to the Nuggets, they shot terribly as a series from 3. They caught back up to their average, right? Like the idea that you're going to be this top 3-point shooting team all postseason, I don't know. That's not who you were.
Right. Yeah. And those little, like, sort of what happens when something can change for a little while, or team falls into playing this way, and then you default to how you're used to playing, or you go back and it's like, oh, this feels this way. And I think that that's super interesting in those mini sort of glimpses we get of adjustments. But then that's not, like you're saying, that's not who you are.
Correct.
And thinking about that in this, sort of day and age too, with how there's so much emphasis, of course, on the 3-point shot. It's like, how could they get that far?
Yeah, no. I mean, of course, they play outstanding defense, and Spo, arguably the best coach in the league, right? Just knows how to, as David always says, he's pragmatic, right? Like, he's not married to, like, well, this is my way. No, the way is what's going to win. I don't care. Oh, this is going to work. Cool. That's what we're doing. Right. Yeah. So, and that's to have that, like that humility to be like, I don't care if this is somebody else's idea. Great. Let's take whatever's going to help us win. I think that allows you to do it. And of course, when you're led by a player like Jimmy Butler, right, who embodies this, you talk about, and we'll get to it when we talk about the draft and the hope of promise fulfilled. Jimmy views himself as a grinder and I'm not supposed to be here guy. Despite the fact that now he has made all NBA teams, and no, that's still who he is, right? And that is the characteristic that whole team embodies. No one believes in us, chip on our shoulder, all the cliches about that's who they are, and that's who they believe they are, and that's how you get yourself when you have a team of not Jimmy and Bam, but everybody else except for Kyle, like misfits, right? That's how you get this far, because everyone adopts that mentality and you bring it to its limit, which is the NBA Finals.
Yes, absolutely. So because I know that he drives a minivan, or has historically driven a minivan, he carries a minivan-sized chip on his shoulder.
Correct.
The weight of a whole minivan is carried around and something to prove. And he's not the only player, of course, but that's so apparent in his demeanor and, what he has to prove. And, he's like talking shit with the Denver fans and whatever. And it's just like, he's never going to stop, even when, it's just like I find him to be such an exciting person to watch, and it's hard to root against him, I would say. And also, Eric Spoelstra, I think that there's never been a person in a more intense stress situation who's looked so pulled together. From a visual perspective, it's like he could be at dinner drinking a glass of wine, or on the basketball court in game 5 or whatever. And he's like the camera cuts to him and he's like, he's just sitting there nodding his head, looking at, maybe his eyes are darting around a bit, but I'm like, whoa, my hair would be flat, it's just like things would be all over the place. It's just he.
Well, we already discussed how you were during the Kings series and during the Lakers series.
I'm like, I'm going for a walk, get me out of here. And they have a lot of preparation for this, a lot of training. He's been through many NBA finals, whatever. But I think it's still just, even Mike Malone looked, he was a little, I don't know how disheveled NBA coaches can get. I know there's the Jeff Van Gundy.
He wears his emotions far more than Eric Spoelstra wears his.
Yeah. And that is just I'm so impressed by that. And so, I was hoping it'd actually go to 6 or 7. Didn't want anyone to get hurt. I wanted, everyone to get out and be in good condition and everything. But I think, I was just hoping for a few more games of that and some feistiness from.
Honestly, I was like, the Nuggets might sweep them. The Nuggets, I look at the NBA Finals like an exam, right? How many different problems and equations can I throw at my opponent, right? And the less solves they have means I'm going to win, right?
Yeah.
The Nuggets just had every answer. Oh,
Yeah.
you want to do this? Okay, we'll play this way. Like, they beat the Heat at their own game. Well, if I beat you how you like to play, and you
Right.
can't win playing how I like to play, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Right. No, I know. And actually for saying that I wanted it to go longer, it actually felt like a really long series just from a time perspective, like with those days in between and stuff. I was like, wow, this has got, I mean, in some ways I was like, this is going on forever. Like, what's happening? It felt, I'm a big fan and I love watching it. And at a certain point, it's like, we need the answer here. We need this to resolve itself or someone to resolve it. And it felt, for some reason this year, it felt like things were really dragging on. I think it's also because of how quickly the Lakers wrapped things up with the Nuggets wrapped things up with the Lakers and how long it went on between this. So it was just like, whoa, what's going on? Yeah.
And of course, look, as we wrap up, talk about this season, that was a huge plus for the Nuggets. Having swept the Lakers and having all that time off before, the Heat went 7 against the Celtics because, because they couldn't close the door when they needed to, right?
Yeah.
And those extra days of playing, even though David said, oh, one team's coming in, they're going to be a little bit more used to playing. True, and they were, but it hurt them in the second half, right? They just have legs. Whereas Denver, oh, we get it now. Those 8-9 days off we had, yeah, we got legs now. We can run up and down and play a little faster and harder in the second half. And rest is so key. But because at the end of the season, this is a war of attrition, just like football is, right? Like whoever can get the most healthy bodies and able, that's who's generally going to win this thing because it's too long of a season.
Right. And especially for a team, I mean, Nikola Jokic is such a big dude and his, I think about him and comparison to Joel Embiid, someone who every time he's running up the court, I'm like, no, that step, that, it's like, don't fall. Like, or he goes up for a dunk. It's like, yikes. And so I think that, of course, Nikola Jokic has dealt with less injuries than Joel Embiid. I mean, Joel Embiid is so injury prone, but it's still the same thing where it's like, he's bringing up the ball, he's running, he's going in, he's over here. There's so much where it's like, yikes, we're very dependent on him. And this is bad. Yeah. What I'm wondering, I didn't catch this, but Tyler Hero was supposed to come back and he never did.
He was. So they kept talking like, hey, we're getting to this point where, and ultimately, David, was talking to some people in the medical field and look, he had a broken wrist or ligaments. Like like he's going to practice, but the minute he practices, they're going to be like, all right, let's see if you can respond to contact because that's what's going to happen when we get into a series against the Nuggets. Yeah. Someone's going to, KCP, not on purpose, is going to slap down at the ball. He might miss and hit your wrist. How are you going to react to that? And clearly, when they were doing contact stuff, it wasn't responding in a way that was like, well, you can't. And again, that's his teammate. So they're not going to try to hurt him. But if he's not able to respond to contact in that environment, well, what's going to happen when the bad guys are actually going to try to hurt you, right? Like, it just didn't work. So that was unfortunate. But Tyler may not be on the Heat much longer, maybe, depending on...
Yeah.
Depending on what's happening.
Right. And it was unfortunate that they didn't have him to kind of bolster their outside shooting. But yeah, no, I mean, that's, we just talked about the Chris Paul injury, the Kawhi Leonard injury. It's like not to compare Tyler Hero to either of them yet, maybe in the future. But that, could have maybe bought them another game or something. Yeah. Who knows?
All the pieces matter, as Lester Freeman once famously said in The Wire. Before we continue on to talk about a particular incident and a player around Abigail's Warriors, let's take a quick break. All right, Abigail. So your Warriors season started off so interestingly. It's training camp and, normal stuff's going on. And then we see this TMZ video get leaked.
Poor quality. It was a poor quality video. I should have started pixelated.
Well, clearly it was pixelated, and it was from way up high.
Yeah, I'm like, who's down there?
And we see the players standing around on the baseline and on the sideline, getting some instruction. And all of a sudden I look and I see Draymond Green just sort of like casually walking away from where he was standing. So there was actual instruction going on to players on the court. Draymond walks, he was on the court around the backside towards where Jordan Poole's going. And I have to tell you, Abigail, before anything happened, I said, I mean, of course we knew, but I was like, well, that walk alone tells me some shit's about to happen. Like, what? Like, what? we're in the middle of practice. The only time somebody takes it upon themselves to leave where they are and go all the way over to where somebody else is because some shit is about to happen. I mean, anyone who's been in any environment knows that. Like, that's just what that is. And then, of course, Draymond holds off and cold cocks Jordan Poole. I mean, Poole literally left the ground when he got hit. He was on the ground. It was all terrible. It went out and everybody saw it. And Jordan Poole was like a laughingstock in many ways and all these terrible things. And, you know, it's come out over the course of this season that Poole was getting mouthy, talking, you know, as players often do, right? This is the NBA is a testosterone-driven league, a bunch of men and in many cases little boys who are insecure and just talk a lot of junk, right? And Jordan Poole is a known trash talker, as is Draymond. And clearly, at some point, Jordan said something that just went over the line, all right? And Draymond was like, okay, we're going to nip this in the bud right now.
God knows where Draymond's line is. Like, I don't know what that,
right. For Draymond, what is your line? Because you say some wild shit, my guy.
What's happening? Yes, exactly.
And so, you know, that, and you know, Draymond said it on his podcast numerous times, that punch fractured the locker room because Jordan Poole was a key contributor to your championship win the year before. And, you know, Draymond's inability to do what he does in the locker room in terms of holding guys accountable and being that sort of vocal leader. Well, when you break the trust of an important teammate and other guys start looking at you sideways and funny, it creates a divide. And from what I understand from talking to people and different Warriors beat writers have said this, there's a fraction that started growing in the locker room, right? Between the vets and the established guys. So you're Draymond, Clay, Steph, right? You're oh God, Kevon Looney, right? You're established Andre, you're established guys who've been here winning the championships, and young guys like Kuminga, Poole, and when he was here, Wiseman, who thought, well, we were part of a championship last year too. We want some more minutes. We want to do this. We want to do that. And that punch created more of a rift, and it was not able to be healed in time for everybody to do what they had to do.
Yeah, God, that punch. I mean, I had a lot of feelings about that punch. And so I'm going to start by sharing that in high school, I was the person that I saw people running one direction. I ran the other. I was not interested in witnessing any sort of.
You're like, oh, no, I'm going that way.
You see that dude walking over there? I'm walking the other direction. I'm like, I think I have to go into this classroom. That's not my scene, you know, and I struggle with that. So I think that you're right. Like seeing him walk over there and that, I mean, I think that if I was about to punch someone, I would need to get up maybe more steam than Draymond did and sort of work myself up a little more. So there was something so casual, but purposeful about that walk and to have that kind of force come out of it. I was like, wow, Draymond. And yeah, I knew, okay, from a karmic perspective, perhaps, or something like that, I knew that when that happened that the Warriors, when I say the Warriors, it wasn't going to work out.
Yeah. Yep.
How could we start that way and have something work out? I mean, thinking about Michael Jordan punching Steve Kerr in practice, you know, and that I think they won a championship together after that.
They sure did.
So that there, it's not like things can't happen. I think that practices and things like that are private. Of course, when I saw this video, I thought less of Draymond as a human being, you know, as a person. And as much as possible, I'm trying to think about the players, full human beings, and not just what they do on the court, but, you know, all of the things that go into their lives. And so it definitely made me think less of Draymond as a person, because it was a shitty thing to do. It's a shitty thing to do to a stranger. It's a shitty thing to do in the middle of a bar when you're drunk. It's a shitty thing to do to your teammate who probably you care about. It's just, and I also just I'm a big fan. I like hearing narratives. I like the behind the scenes. I don't know if I want to know everything about what happens in a practice. And that doesn't mean that once it's out, it's a different story, because then I'm having a reaction to what's out. But should it have been leaked? Should I know about this? I mean, we hear the coaches talking to players during games. We hear players talking to each other. I know that the NBA is, looking over that or hearing those things and saying, this is what can go out and this is what can't. And probably the thing that's most interesting is what the NBA and ESPN is not, or whatever is not letting us hear.
Yes, that's the interesting stuff.
That's the stuff where they're like, you know, I want to hear them talking about, I mean, I guess to a certain extent, I want to hear the trash talk that's more like, you whatever, and look at that ugly shot and blah, blah, this, and your mom couldn't hit that or whatever, you know? But I think that, like, I also that we don't get to hear. Like, I don't think I should get the privilege of hearing all of that. That's like something that comes on the court. That's like,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
about being a player and being a coach and being in the
Yeah.
huddle and being in the locker room. And
Yeah.
I think that's special. And I'm not a player. And I've always wanted to be like, I've always sort of, that's a part of being on a team.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that, of course, the punch was awful. It's that
Mm-hmm.
divide. You know, we needed Jordan Poole in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
and we until recently needed him going forward for sure. I mean, he was going to be a shape the future of the Warriors. And so, yeah, that divide sucks. And also it's like, I could have done without that information too. I don't know. How do you feel about that as someone who covers the game?
It's tough, Abigail, because in many ways, right, a team in any sport, but we're talking about the NBA, that's a workplace, right? And
yeah,
but the way in which normal corporate workplaces work, it's not quite the same in this regard, right? In sports, because there is a physical and there is a competitive nature in almost a hand-to-hand combat kind of way that sports has that being an accountant doesn't have, right? Like it's not quite the same thing, right? It isn't, let's say you work for, I don't know, Ernst & Young, and like you're a junior accountant, and like your team leader comes up, it's like, all right, like we got these 3 clients, we need, like, you're not all like, you're not competing with each other in that way, right? It's like, we need to get this thing done for this client, like you're on this, you're on that, like, and everybody's gotta do their thing. But this is like, no, we're battling, right? And we are, Draymond at that point had not gotten his contract extension, and there was talk that he might not get it, right?
Yeah.
The punch, it was, oh, he's definitely not getting it now. And
right.
Poole had already gotten his. So, and again, you can say what you want. Draymond was wrong, all that. Yes, I agree. But Draymond's also a human.
Yes.
He felt some kind of way about, wait a minute, me, the guy who helped you win 4 championships, who, as much as it's about Steph and KD and no Draymond, no rings. Everyone knows that.
The heart and soul of the team. Steve
Kerr said it.
Says it a million times. Yeah.
Right. So when they chose to give Poole the extension, I'm sure Draymond was in his feelings about that. Now, because it's sport and it's macho culture, he's not going to be, guys, you hurt my feelings, but he's not going to say that. That's not how that's going to work. So what's going to happen is he's going to let it stew and sit inside, work with Rich Paul, who is his agent, and be like, okay, we're going to figure out this, that, and the third, do our story leaks, all that stuff. And then meanwhile, you got Jordan Poole, who's like, don't worry about getting no extension because you're not getting paid. Like, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, lighter fuel and Matt. Okay, now we have a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is how it comes out now because there is no healthy arena for Draymond to address how he feels, right? Although I would assume, like, just go talk to them, Draymond. Like, I mean, right? Or you and Rich sit down and, like, there's got to be some kind of way to deal with that. And also for Draymond to be able to handle when a young buck starts talking shit, right? Like, it's just, there's got to be a way to manage all that. And
a better way, perhaps. Yes. Yeah.
And to your point about what do we deserve to hear, the intimacy of practice and the locker room right after. No, I don't think we are privy to hear that. After a cool down period and like, sure, then we come in and the same thing with on the court. I'm with you. Like, man, you can't shoot. You building a house, all those bricks. Fine. I don't care about hearing all that. But when it gets into personal, we don't need to, and the NBA is very good about, clearly that's why you don't hear that stuff, right? They cut out all that stuff because you don't need to know all that. Like, it's not necessary.
I know. It's so interesting because the things that they do share with us from the court are super boring. It's like, all right, guys, just keep doing what you're doing. Like, or get over there. It's like, it's so boring that it's like, well, I don't need to know this because I know that they're saying that. I know that the coach says, we're doing great. I just, we need one more push or whatever. That's just what's happening. Yeah. So it's like, I don't even want to hear anything. If that's what you're going to play me, like, I don't want to hear that. And I don't feel that I deserve, because I think that there's some private things and sometimes there's some cute things. There's some whatever. It's like, it feels like, okay. So if we think about, and I always have this question about our NBA players that don't, like, on different teams, are they coworkers or are they colleagues? And are referees colleagues of theirs, or like, what is that relationship? And even you see referees and players joking around, and it's like, that's their space. That's something that they, and I feel like it's kind of like your example of this accountant firm or whatever. It's like busting into someone's cubicle and being like,
right.
Sorry, I just held, for those of you listening, I just held my ear up to the screen. It's just kind of like, this is also where this is their workspace, and not, the locker room isn't just their workspace. Like, this is just, I think it's okay to have them have a lot of privacy out there. And that's something that I'm okay with. And
I am with you. And
so
that 94 by 50 feet, right? That space on that floor. You're so right. Teammates are colleagues, but they may not like each other.
Yeah.
Opponents might be friends and they're peers and they're kind of colleagues not on the floor, but in the larger, we're part of the union going up against yes, we're like, right. It's the relationships and the lines and everything are just very blurred, and they change moment to moment, right? Referees are ostensibly in charge of the space.
Yeah.
Yet we know dominating star personalities can be like, I'm not having this. Like, so it's a strange, and then, and what you have there is then, and we talk about this all the time, right? David and I do. Well, if LeBron does it and it's not a foul, then it's not a foul when the 15th man off the bench does it. But no, it is a foul when the 15th, right? Like, it's this weird hierarchy of who's more important than who gets to dictate what, and it's all, and who's the most important person in an organization. Most people would assume it's a star player, but shouldn't it be the guy who signs the checks? It's certainly not the head coach, right?
Right. No,
it is.
Yeah.
It's all bizarre. It is all bizarre.
Right. And I think that, so what you were saying, so the period that this was happening, when the punch happened with Draymond and Jordan Poole, that this period of time where like Draymond's future was unknown, Jordan's Poole's future was secure at that moment. Like, I think that also, even when the media is not in the room there, like physically the media is not there, they're still there, because everything the media is saying and all those chirps and like, oh, this or that, or Draymond's going to end up here or whatever, like that's there, that's present. So it's like, that's the match or the gasoline or whatever. It's all there. And so I think that goes to what just happened with Victor Wembanyama with Britney Spears. So Adam Silver saying, oh, he's handling this so well. And the media, we need the media. We need this to happen. And like, we need this relationship that the NBA has with the media. And Victor Wembanyama is handling this so well, this interaction, but we need them to be like covering this. And so that's just a really interesting thing too, because like, it's so symbiotic how these things need each other. And the thing that gets people all riled up perhaps. And of course it's a very different, these are different situations, but it's this idea of like what role the media plays in the coverage of things, and how that, even when the media is not in the building, they're still there. Like
they're omnipresent, as you mentioned. And it's not just traditional media, right? In terms of like digital and like stories that come out, it's social media as well, right? And what fans are saying on NBA Twitter and all these different platforms. And no matter what a player tells you about, I don't listen to that stuff. Bullshit. They may not seek it out as some do, but somebody will tell them about it. Okay. Someone in their circle will be like, did you hear what Stephen A said about you? Did you? They get it. Trust me when I tell you, their own teammates might tell them, right? They get everything that is said about them. And so that's a very difficult sort of life to live, like, and be under, right? To your point, back in that moment when Draymond's future was unsecure and Jordan's was, right? That's a lot to manage and deal with. And when you don't have the proper avenues to let that out in a constructive and a better fashion, you get situations like this, right? And it was unfortunate.
Right. And coaches are, part of their job is to manage personalities, to keep things flowing, working, whatever. But, who's prepared to deal with the media and the way it works and coming into these spaces and how to, work with this thing that's so, I mean, it's like a separate training too, to figure out how to navigate these comments, these takes, these things that are like living with everyone. And of course, this isn't new. I mean, living with Twitter is newer, but of course, this is, since there are reporters, this is happening, but now it lives with us all the time. And it's really powerful. And, I mean, I guess whatever, 8 months later, like Jordan Poole is not playing on the Warriors.
The Warriors clearly made their choice, and they have decided who matters most to them. And it was Draymond. And it was so interesting because, it's sort of the end of it's not sort of, it is. It's the end of the Bob Myers era, right? Like he is not back with the team as their general manager.
Yeah.
And I think so much of why that functions so well, because let's be honest, we said on this show, Draymond is a difficult employee to have, right? Like he is a exceptional high level performer, but he is a high maintenance employee that you have to manage and deal with. And Bob's presence was crucial to that, right? Because Bob could come down out of his GM role and Steve wouldn't feel any kind of way. And he was able to talk to Draymond in many instances to get him to do whatever he needed to do. And Draymond respected Bob enough to allow himself to be talked to and counseled in that way.
Right.
Who's going to do that now? Mike Dunleavy Jr.? I don't think so.
No.
Right? Like,
yeah. And those are big shoes to fill. Like, yeah. And, right. I mean, it's the end of an era for sure, which is so interesting because we still have our three main stars,
No doubt.
But the leadership, this turnover in management and the trust there and like what's going to happen moving forward. I am happy that Mike Dunleavy has been part of the organization for a long time. And, he's a familiar face. And I think that is much better than bringing in someone brand new.
For sure.
And so I think that has weight and power, but yeah, it's so many times with all these situations and like, Clay's injury and KD's injury and like different things that have come up in the role that Bob Myers has played in like seeing the team through these things. And like, I think again, that's why that 2022 championship was really special. It's like we came out on the other side and it felt really, it just felt quite like it meant more than 17, 18. So I don't know what's going to happen there. And I'm embracing myself for not 2020, but I'm bracing myself for like
something in between.
And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. I think that I also I was like into Dante DiVincenzo, I think he was a great player for them. I think I felt like he was great for that second rotation. So I'm letting go of some players I never even knew I cared about that much.
It will be interesting to see how it all plays out. Look, you still have Steph playing at peak levels, right? He's still performing like a top 5 player in the league. But they're older, right? And as injuries can creep up, as they will, Steph and Draymond and Clay will all spend time at some point this next season on the injured list, right? How can the team rally around them and support? And, will there be another season of magic, right? History tells us probably not. But again, to your point, it's not going to be like how it was in 2020. You won't be 17 wins and getting your ass kicked by everybody on national TV.
Yeah.
But winning a championship, that's going to take a lot of things breaking favorably your way, which sure, it could happen. But
maybe some bones breaking of other players. And I won't be a part of that. Yeah.
You're like, I'm not advocating for that.
I know. No, I want everyone healthy. And to just touch on one more thing with Draymond really quickly is that I've come out of some faculty meetings before and been pretty heated, and my contract is not in jeopardy there. So I can understand, like, we're all human. Yeah. We all have breaking points. We all have like, you don't, you're just, and you're, in a basketball game, like you're trying to rile me up or whatever,
right,
and
exactly.
So let alone that versus just someone saying something that you're like, that offends my personhood, So I think I can understand, having a strong reaction. I'll call it a strong reaction here. I mean, I think we can always say violence isn't the answer. And then, we're put in trying situations. Yeah.
Right. And yet it happens.
Yes. And you can be a really nice, caring, wonderful person and do something shitty. And that's, I think, just a part of what we see.
Multiple things can be true at once. That is the story of life.
But we love the binary. We love the villain. We love to say this person's a jerk. This person's this way. Yeah, we're addicted to that for sure.
The hero and the villain. That's how our brains work. And it's like, okay. But there's, of course, there's multicolor all in between that. You mentioned Victor Wembanyama, so I want to go here and kind of talk about the promise and the hope that youth brings to teams, right? So Victor is this 18-year-old French phenom, and his first game in summer league went how it went, and people were like, "Oh my God, I told you he wasn't gonna be ready." Okay, fine, whatever. I mean, as you know, we're way more measured here, and David was in Vegas, and he's texting us like, "I don't know, this doesn't matter. Like, none of this shit matters." Like he's literally like, "This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter." Like, and then in game 2, oh look, all of a sudden he looks great. Like it's just
27 points,
right?
Yeah.
It's like guys, like we have no idea what Victor ultimately will be, but I'll tell you, We ain't going to know after 2 games of Summer League. I'll tell you also what we won't know. We won't know after 1 year in the league. Talk to me 3 years in. At the conclusion of his 3rd season, we will have much more sample size to go off of to determine, okay, this is a trajectory we can see this player on. The problem, of course, is that that's not how our brains, how the media ecosystem, and how it all works. We need to know right now, is Victor going to be the greatest player of all time? And it's like, as David said, he has the talent, right? He has the tools. I understand why he was picked number 1. David says he's the best NBA prospect that's ever been drafted. That doesn't mean he's going to be the best NBA player ever. Right. All the tools suggest a lot of things. You talked about the luck you need to win a championship. A lot of royal jelly and incubation and all the good things have to happen, and luck for Victor to be all that. I have no way of knowing if any of that's going to happen.
And that's okay, right? It's okay to not know. I think we don't, again, the things that we like the binary, and we like knowing, we like being certain, we like saying this is what's going to happen. And I think that I love David saying this doesn't matter, that doesn't matter. Just like right. Living in this space of not being able to predict. You know, we can have all the numbers we want. We can crunch them every which way, and still it's this huge mystery. Thinking about James Wiseman, you know, it was a really exciting pick, and like, he's not on the Warriors anymore, and who knows? But also, we don't know what's going to happen. You know, right. in a couple of years, and there can be lots of different stages. You know, and maybe in some ways it's better to bloom late than early on. You know, and so I think that like, I don't know, Spurs fans can relax a little bit, because I think that they can lean into the unknown and maybe, not get so worked up about what's happening in these first few games. I also think that I would so much rather be Nikola Jokic as like the 42nd pick and not have that pressure than Zion and what Zion's been through, you know, because that is a burden and a weight. And even just like with what's happening with college ball too, of like, what can you do in a year somewhere? I mean, that's just not, so these prospects that are so highly, you know, they know they're going to be these number 1 picks going into, or top 5, top 10. And then it's just like, he must feel so disappointed. I mean, I don't know how he feels. Sorry. I would feel disappointed myself based on all these things. You have to really stay centered to get through that. Yikes.
I love that you brought this up, Abigail, and listeners of this podcast know David saying, get off the roller coaster and enjoy the merry-go-round, right? Like, there are the ups and downs of this profession, and you will drive yourself crazy if you go as high as the highs and you go as low as lows. Now, easier said than done for me to say behind my microphone and not having to deal with it, right? It's much harder, but can you surround yourself? And this is what I want to know about the NBA as an entity, right? Is it the right place to do all the proper nurturing? And, you know, nurturing and sports don't sound like they go together, but they do, right? Is it the right environment for these young, talented people to grow and nurture and become the best versions of themselves and as players? And I'd argue probably not, right? Just because of all the things that we've seen, right? Throughout the history of this league, guys that have failed, and, you know, some of that's on their own, but some of that's the league failing them, right? You mentioned Jokic. Yeah, I mean, being picked 42nd has huge advantages. Everything he's done in his career since the time he was drafted has been gravy, because no one thought he'd be that. Right. That is the beauty of being drafted 42nd versus being drafted number 1 overall. Oh, no. Here's the odd thing, right? If Victor Wembanyama, let's say what Nikola Jokic has accomplished in his career, let's just say he never accomplishes anymore. If that is Victor Wembanyama's career, 2 MVPs, 1 NBA championship, and a finals MVP, there are going to be people saying, oh, this guy's a bust. The hype wasn't worth it. He wasn't all that. Right? Look how ridiculous that statement I just said. Yeah. Ridiculous, because I talked about it before, right? That anchoring effect, right? That idea of, and it's a form of cognitive dissonance. The first thing that we are associated with something, that is what the lasting impression is left in our brain. You are the number 1 pick, and you will forever be a number 1 pick. That's all you are to everyone who ever meets you. So whenever you don't live up to whatever number 1 pick means, well, you are a disappointment now. Versus you were the 42nd pick overall. We expected nothing. So look, right?
Even though you're like one of the top 42 basketball players in the world or whatever, you know, like
right.
you've already done so much just to do this, just to
Mm-hmm.
get drafted, you know, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's really, it's kind of exhausting and tiring. Again, how we're like looking at these things and like this means that and that means this, and not allowing for these spaces that are more expansive where someone can surprise us in this really, I think we, you know, the surprises are exciting, but also just those in between things that are just, what if Nikola Jokic was just having a good career? What if he was just really dominant and wasn't the MVP? Not also, can we also celebrate that, you know? Or, you know, Wembanyama, like, what if I just feel like, yeah, it goes back to the binary. I mean, this is not just in sports. We just want binaries in general, and we get attached to it. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think that is, it's just unfortunate, and it makes me sad for players.
And the comparisons right away, Abigail. So of course, you know, this is the Spurs' third number 1 overall pick in their franchise history. The other two, of course, David Robinson and Tim Duncan. I mean, Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward of all time. Top 7 player. Like, I mean, if he has Tim Duncan's career, holy shit, that's amazing.
Right.
Right. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I just, you know, and again, we have to keep in mind, Duncan, when he came into the NBA, he had 3 years at Wake Forest, right? Even though he picked up basketball late, like, Duncan was ready to come in day one and be not only very good, be an integral part to like a championship caliber team, right?
Right. And David Robinson was so ready. Yeah.
Right.
He was already,
right.
The admiral steering the ship.
Right.
Get in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Victor, not quite, like, the tools are there for sure.
Yeah.
But he's not quite physical. And David talked about this with me this week, like physically. And it's not about like he's weak. It's not that. It's just that core stuff needs to get stronger. Different things just need to happen so that he can manage the rigors of the NBA game. And so you said something to me off air, which is probably true. And when we say what I'm going to say, I want you guys to use nuance and hear me. It might be worse, Abigail said, before it gets better. And by worse, we don't mean like he's going to suck. We just mean like, don't come in here thinking he's going to average 27 and 12 on day. That's not going to happen. All right. Doesn't mean he can't in the future. It just means that do not have that expectation on day one.
Right. And also these are new. He's not played with these players. This is game 2 of playing with this team, you know? And so it's
guys who we won't even play with when actual games
right,
count.
Yeah, in a different lineup. Yeah. And so I think that there's just so much of like, oh, well, if you're this good, then that means that all of these things melt away. Like it just, and I think that also that is our tendency to emphasize the individual over the team, where it's like,
correct.
Well, at a certain level, it doesn't matter who this person's playing with. Well, actually it does. And these are also really good players, but like they need to work with each other. I mean, I know he worked out with the Spurs a bunch or whatever, and I don't actually know what those workouts look like before the draft.
He had one practice with the guys he played summer league with. He hasn't had a full practice with the actual NBA team that's going to play in October. None. So, I mean, it's going to take some time, people.
Right. And I think that the Spurs are a strong institution, you know, and I think that Pop is a great coach and that there's just a strong foundation there. So that says more, I think, than one game or 2 games, you know? And yeah, I don't know what David says. I mean, I know what he says because I listen, but I don't know exactly what he said about this, but I'm like, get him an ice cream cone. Like, get Victor Wembanyama an ice cream cone, you know? It's like, I want him to, he must feel overwhelmed, you know? And just with this whole Britney Spears thing and just like, and also just, I think that's an example of what people feel comfortable, how they feel comfortable interacting with players. And that's a whole other conversation and I think maybe it could play into our future conversations around like sort of expectations or interactions with players and stuff like that. But it's just, I don't know. I just feel like I'm sure he's working out and getting his reps in and all that. And I'm like, I just hope that he's getting a smoothie too.
I mean, Abigail, he's 18 years old in a country that's not his. Like, yes, he speaks English like very well and has a good. He did that podcast with JJ Redick on Old Man in the 3, and he was talking about like you know, what he wants to be. And he's like, do you guys get me? He's like, I know in French, if I said it, I knew it would sound exactly what I want to say.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, we get you. Your English is, we heard exactly what you said. Like, guys, if you've never lived anywhere else where English is not the right, and that's a very different kind of thing to immerse yourself in. You've spent time in Serbia. Like, it's just, listen, like, so imagine now living here and also being this superstar that's supposed to save this franchise, and like, whoa, that's a lot on those narrow shoulders, right? Like, he's gotta, give him a chance to work himself up into what's expected of him.
Yes, and I think no matter what, it will be interesting and exciting, and I think it's great. One thing I've been thinking about with the photo class that I'm teaching in the fall, there's so much emphasis photography of taking a good picture. What does it mean to take a good picture? What makes for a good image? It has to do with exposure.
Every man listening to this right now is like, my girlfriend or wife yells at me because I take shitty pictures. So yeah. What does it mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. With my husband, I'm always like, over here, over there, like, wait, why are you holding the camera that direction? Or my dad has this habit of like, he wants to take pictures from lower down, so whenever my sister and I ask him for a picture, he always like gets down on one knee. I'm like, no, what's happening here? Like, please stand up, be at our level. So we have, a big part of intro to photography classes is like taking a good image. I mean, that's essentially like a jump shot, like sinking a jump shot. Like, how do our technique, we get it in and we can do it over and over again, and we're reliable at doing it and we know the formula. And I was thinking about the next time I teach that class, just saying, take a bunch of bad pictures. Like, I want you to take bad pictures that are purposefully bad so I can see what you think is a bad picture. And then we'll go from there. Because then, and also you can see what you think is a bad picture. And then you can say, hey, this is what I think I need to do. Or this is why I don't think this looks as good. And getting those, like, just, let's make a bunch of shitty images and then we'll just get it out of our system. And that doesn't mean we don't default there sometimes or whatever. Our skills don't, it takes a while to build up. But so I was thinking about that today in relationship to these incoming players and like the pressure on them. It's like, miss every shot you take. Like, what is that like? But also it's like, I'm worried that Coach Thorpe is going to listen to this and be like, what did she say? But I'm not a coach and I don't know anything about basketball to a certain extent, but it's just like, what if we just celebrated just a bunch of missed shots as like, they're just missing a lot of shots, or like, oh, you threw that out of bounds, do it again,
Well, as well as I know David, what he would say is he's less concerned about will the shots go in or not, because you're going to miss shots. What kind of shot was it? And what did the shooting form look like if you're teaching someone how to shoot? Those are the things he's looking at, right?
Yeah.
In terms of mistakes, he says this all the time. No such thing as rookie mistakes, because veterans make mistakes too. They're just mistakes. The idea is the more oxygen you get, aka playing time, and the more reps you get, the less mistakes you will make, because you have all those reference points to go back to and touch, right? Like, so David, you let me know if I hit that on, but that's probably what I think David would say.
Yeah, that's great. And the parallel is not perfect, and it's mostly just like wanting, I don't know, just thinking about reps. Let's get those reps in and let's see what we think. Let's step back. Let's edit them, or critique them or analyze them and say, actually, these 19 photos, terrible. This one photo has some potential. Take that photo 20 more times.
No, David would love this, because let games inform that's what you do in practice, and let what you do in practice inform what you can do in games, right? Like that's how this sort of thing works, right? So what am I failing at? Oh, well, because you can't get to the second box. Why? Well, because you got a weak left hand. Well, we got to work on it, right? Like, let's do the thing, right? It's all the different things that are happening. Of course you can't like do X, Y, and Z because you have no right hand, right? Well, let's work on it, right? Like, these are the different things that help you ultimately get to where you want to be. No, this is fascinating. Abigail, thank you so much. Abigail Smithson of the Dear Adam Silver podcast. Make sure you all check that out. She'll be on again later this summer. We're going to talk about some other stuff. I'm doing a series, guys, coming up on the future of the NBA. Stay tuned to that. It's a nice little podcast series about just questions I have, like media, like the media rights deals coming up. I know Adam's talked about expansion coming, and I know you said the other day, we have no plans right now for a sovereign wealth fund to have primary control of a team. And I literally laughed my ass off. I was like, first of all, sovereign wealth fund money already in the NBA. 1, 2, okay, control of a team. I get it. And Adam's always so good about the language he uses. There's no path in the foreseeable future, which means in the not foreseeable future, it could happen and there could be a path, right?
Those lawyers with their word choice are tripping us up.
That's what they're there for, to make sure you can't go back and say, you said, no, I didn't. I said in the foreseeable future. That's not forever, right? And so anyway, like what expansion would mean, and then the game in terms of when we were young and we watched it, it was a thing, right? Like Sunday afternoon, there'd be 3 games on NBC. Kids don't do that now. Like no teenage kids sit home and watch 3 consecutive basketball games in a row, NBA games. Exactly.
Yeah, I was there with my blueberry muffin and my chocolate milk.
You
Let's
see
do
what I'm
this.
saying? No, kids don't do that now. They just don't. And so what does that mean for the game going forward? So these are questions I'm going to ask. I'm not going to say I don't have any answers for them. We're going to have some smart people on to hear their thoughts on it. But Abigail, it was a pleasure. Congratulations on being back in California. Congratulations on being at Cal Poly. And we will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.